Hey everyone, welcome to the show. Uh, See, we got Abbott in here. Big Country was in here. Mario Sanchez, Mark Catfish and Crappie, Jay Fox Hunter, 351 Cleveland. Corey the Flatty Daddies was in here earlier. Uh, Thanks guys, I appreciate y'all. Uh,
Absolutely. Thank y'all.
we'll give it a little bit of time and get some more people in here. Uh, Fishing with the Dots in here. Uh, So, guys, if y'all don't mind, share this out. Let's get some people in here. Eric Burnside, welcome.
Howdy, folks. I can't see the chat on my end, so I'm just going.
Yeah. Creole Catfishing made it in. Welcome, Creole. There's Nick Sogo. Welcome, Nick. Nick said hi, TJ.
Howdy, so go.
Rex Blocker, welcome. Larry Oliver. Thanks, guys. Eric Burnside, he goes live a lot. I watch him.
Yeah, I do too. I catch him in the afternoons,
Yeah,
early mornings. He's up north country for me. He's up toward Greenville.
yeah. There's Kevin, Palmetto Cats. Welcome, Kevin. Uh, yeah, a lot of these guys, if I'm not fishing, I'm usually watching fishing.
Yeah.
And Uncle Willie's 2 cents. Welcome. That's a new one. I haven't seen that. Uh, if I'm not fishing, I'm watching fishing. And
Same to me.
I frustrate my wife sometimes. She's like, "Why are you always watching fishing and learning?" There's fishing with the Chad. Squirrel.
What's up, Chad?
Fishing with the squirrels here.
Squirrel.
Thanks for dropping in, guys. Uh, yeah, I love watching these guys on their live streams. And even though they're fishing different bodies of water and different areas than me, I can still watch and I pick up stuff from them. I even the guys over in the UK. I watch a lot of the UK guys fish, and they're catching fish I've never seen before.
Right.
But a lot of their rigs and stuff that they use, it can be incorporated back over here, and we can do that. And so
I enjoy watching those fellas over in the UK. I watch local marks and I watch Glasgow. The local marks, them guys be fishing with 14-foot Erebus rods, and
yeah,
God Almighty, look how long them rods are.
there's want to be outdoors. Hey Matt, welcome.
What's up, Matt?
I made it in. Catmandu Outdoors. Thanks, guys. A lot of times watching them channels, it's hard for me because over here we're kind of spoilt with the catfish. When that fish hits that rod, you know he hit that rod. You
Right.
can, and they're like, "Oh, we got a bite, we got a bite," and I'm like, "Where?" Big Slim made it in. Terry Lane, welcome, guys. All right, TJ. First thing I want to cover is your health. We know you've had some issues, and me and everyone else, we've been watching your lives and stuff, and everyone just wants to check on you. Know how are you doing?
Well, I'm doing real well. Some of you have seen, watched my lives. I went back out against medical advice
and didn't take water.
and didn't take water. Yeah, didn't take enough water.
Yeah,
But I go back Monday, but I'm keeping in touch with Doc, letting him know, what I'm doing and this and that. But yeah, I'm doing a lot better. It was just driving me absolute back crap crazy, sitting on the couch watching everybody fish on my TV, and I was like, I got the itching. I was like, I can't take it no more. I got to go. Your body kind of tell you, whoa, or hey,
yeah.
you're okay to go. Your body, and I was getting that from my body. My everything, my faculties was back. and my balance and all that stuff. That was what I was concerned about at first, because sometimes you have one of them things and you're never right again. And
Yeah.
and they said it was a mild one, so I'm lucky. Praise God. I'm lucky. It didn't have no everlasting effects except for my eye. And other than that, I'm motoring right along. I'm getting but go back to the doctor Monday morning. So
That's good. Ron Bortz made it in here. Get
what's up,
hooked.
Brian?
Miss D made it in. Uh, for those in chat that don't know you, kind of tell them who you are and what bodies of water you're fishing up there.
Well, I'm TJ Addis, by the way. Uh, Channel's Hilljack Catfishing. I'm from Ohio originally. I grew up, cut my teeth catfishing up in Ohio and on the Ohio River mainly. And, Lake Erie. I fished Lake Erie a bunch. And back in April 2018, I moved down here to South Carolina on Lake Marion, South Carolina. That's the primary lake I fish. I fish it, Santee River. I fish the diversion canal between Lake Marion and Lake Moultrie. Some, not as much as I like, but I'm on the Santee Cooper chain of lakes, which is an unbelievable fishery. You ever get a chance, you ought to come. Don't come in the
Yeah.
summer. Come in October through March. That's my best advice. But moved down here to get out of the cold weather, and but I grew up fishing on the Ohio River in the Gallipolis pool, Gallipolis, Ohio, and where the Kanawha River in West Virginia and the Ohio River meet in that confluence right across from Point Pleasant, West Virginia. It's where I caught my PB shovelhead or flathead. I get a lot of grief for that.
Yeah.
I get a lot of grief for that. From where I'm from, down the hills, all the old timers, that's what we always called them, the shovelheads. But be politically correct, flathead. It was 74 pounds. I fought it for almost an hour, and the thing like to wore me out. I was bank fishing,
Yeah.
and it ran me up and down that riverbank for almost an hour, right at an hour, and I was done. But since then, I've been obsessed. I've been
Yeah.
obsessed with catfish. Once you hook a big one, you're always out
All
there
you
trying
think
to one
about.
up yourself. You're always trying
Yeah.
to one up yourself. If there's one that big, hey, there's got to be more bigger than him.
Yeah.
And that's how it started out. I've hunt fished all over the United States and Canada, and I'm just glad to be here. And that's about it for me. For
I'm
my,
glad to have you. Looks like Ernie Brown made it in. Welcome, Ernie.
what's up, Arnie?
Uh, Another thing to mention, that Santee Cooper chain of lakes there, even the river system that runs through there, that is a heavily fished area. I mean, it's not like you go out there and you're going to see one, maybe two boats like some of your smaller lakes. That lake is known for fish.
Yeah.
And I mean, not only just your cat fishermen, but your bass fishermen. It sees a lot of boat traffic, a lot of fishing pressure.
And Lake Marion, where I'm at, is known as much for striper fishing as it is
Yep.
as catfishing.
Yep.
We got a big billboard right up here. It goes where I-95 crosses the lake. Huge billboard with a great big striper up there.
Yep. LG Bass made it in. Hey, Tom.
What's up, Mr. Tom?
And
But during the weeks, the pressure ain't as heavy. The pressure is really heavy from for the bass fishermen from March till June, and then it shuts off. We have a tournament here on Lake Marion every weekend from March 1st up till June 1st. So
yeah.
a lot of heavy traffic then, and lots of traffic. I mean, one tournament when I was out, what was it? It was March 15th we were out, and they had 4 tournaments going on the lake, and they said there was 1,500 bass boats on the lake that day. But this lake is absolutely enormous. There's 311 miles of shoreline on this lake. It's the bigger of the two lakes. Plus, it's fed by Santee River, which the Saluda River and the Wateree Rivers join up north of the lake and flow into the Santee River, and Santee River is what made this lake. So, but it's an awesome fishery, man. And like I said, you get a little bit of everything. If I want to go river fishing, I got about a 15-minute drive. I'll trailer the boat 15 minutes away, and I can be in the river.
Yeah.
Or if I want to fish the lake, I can be in the lake. Or if I want to go in the swamps, I can go fish the swamps. There's some big flatheads in the swamps up here.
Yeah.
But yeah, but October, my prime time is October through the 1st of March, mid-March, because there ain't very much boat traffic on this lake then, and it's prime time fishing here.
Yeah. See, Michael Williams made it in. Relaxing frustrations. Now, have you always just targeted catfish, or is that something you've gotten into over the recent years?
No, when I was a kid, I was a ditch pickler. That's what I call them now. I was a ditch pickler when I was a kid. I like that top water action. I love that stuff. And I would wade creeks down where I'm from. I'd wade creeks and fish the lakes for bass. But once I got home from the service back in '93, that's when I started catfishing a lot. I would do it occasionally at night. I had the old wives' tale, fish at night for catfish, but I've come to find out that ain't true. But once I got out of the service and started catfishing, and then I hooked that big one, and then it's just been all over but the crying. And that's what I mainly target now. Unless I go to Canada, go walleye fishing, or I go back to Ohio and go up to Lake Erie and go walleye fishing or perch fishing up there. But mainly that's what I go for. I've been coming down here fishing this lake since 1999. I've been coming down here since then, fishing, make couple trips a year until I moved down here, and then I solely fish this place now. But
Yeah.
I used to go to Reelfoot Lake, Tennessee, and crappie fish. That was an awesome. If you guys have never had a chance to do it, you make your way to Reelfoot Lake, Tennessee, you won't catch some crappie. It is a freaking catch fest over there.
We got our first question in chat. This is from Fishing from the Dot. What size hooks do you guys normally use for big cats? I'll let you answer that first, TJ,
Well,
in my opinion.
Where'd it go? What is that? Let's get it out of here. I use anywhere from an 8/0 circle hook, and that's all I use is circle hooks. 8/0 circle hook up to a 12/0 circle hook. I don't go no smaller than that, and that's what I use. I mean, I I've lost a couple big fish using smaller equipment, and that's what I use now. I used to use 3, 4, 5/0 circle hooks, and I had one get bent and straightened plumb out on me, and I said swore from that day on, never again. It's 8/0 and above for me now.
Yeah. 8/0 is the smallest hook I use, and I use circle hooks also. I use 8/0 a lot with the cut bait and stuff, unless I'm using big chunks. Live baits and bigger cut baits, I use the 10/0, and I really like the hooks from Uncle Lou's.
Yes.
They got a real good wide gap on them, which allows you a better chance of hooking into that fish with that circle hook. You don't want to fill your hook up because you won't get that hookup ratio. But
in fact, if you speak of that, there's an 8/0 Uncle Lou hook. I don't know if everybody can see it. That's an 8/0 Uncle Lou hook right there.
Yeah. And guys, I know if you can't tell the difference on my channel, I've got one where I went through tackle, and I showed you different hooks like Uncle Lou's compared to the Catfish Sumo or the Gamakatsu is real popular. I gave you a kind of comparison and showed the different hooks and the gaps. But uh, 8-aught hooks, I've never seen a need to go down smaller because I've caught 2-pound fish on them 8-aught hooks. And, you know, they have no trouble. I caught a 5-foot alligator gar on that 10-aught Uncle Lou's hook. So, I mean, and you know how small an alligator gar's mouth is.
Right.
If I can get that hook in him, I'm not going to have any problems. And that that's what I really like. I know a lot of people will downsize their hooks if they're catching smaller fish, or sometimes if the fish are biting short and you still want to fish with the live bait or large bait. I've seen guys put stinger hooks in them, double hook them. I've seen guys use a double hook Kentucky rig. There's many different things out there that do work in certain instances, guys. Uh, the main thing is don't get tunnel vision. Don't get set on this is how I got to do it. It's the only way I'm going to do it. Let the fish kind of tell you what you need to do. Uh, you know, fish are kind of like a woman, guys, and no offense to any ladies, but
I say that all the time on my lives, and I get chopped when I get home about it.
yeah, just because that's what you want them to do, that doesn't mean that's what they're going to do. You got to give them what they want at times. Hey, Valerie Irwin made it in.
Hey, Val.
But that's a good question. I do get a lot of guys ask about hook sizes, but like I said, yes, Dale, got another question. Are them Uncle Lou's hooks offset? Yes, Dale.
Yes, they are.
Offset, and they are the octopus style. So it's got the eye tilted. That makes it easier snelling your hooks. And guys, if you're using circle hooks, the best advice I can give you is snell your hooks.
Absolutely.
If you're not snelling your circle hooks, you are considerably reducing your chance of that fish of a lifetime. Uh, you've got to snell your hooks. It's a must. Uh, there's also videos. I've got some. Other channels have got them. Different snell knots you can use, different knots to tie, and
I use a no knot snails. What I use.
Valerie says, he says, perfect timing. I see women and fish have so much in common. Yes, they do. You know, a wise man will tell you never argue with a woman. Same thing with the fish. If that's what the fish wants, you got to do what that fish wants, or you're going home empty-handed.
And I always say too, fish are kind of like women, is because you can't never tell what they want.
Yep. Creole catfishing, gut pockets. Do you leave them in or cut them out? I'll let you answer first. And then
I leave mine in. I leave mine in just for the scent factor. I leave mine in.
I leave mine in also. And a lot of the times on like the gizzard shad and stuff, I will hook them through that gut pocket, and I will hold them guts and run that hook through there to where that hook will keep it from washing out of that gut pocket till that fish hits it. And I'll come back out the other side. But I do leave my gut pockets in. Now, then again, guys, I'm on the bank. I'm not trolling. I'm not dragging baits. I know a lot of guys, if they use bigger chunks and they're drifting or trolling, they have a problem with the bait spinning in the water. A lot of people don't like that. Some of them cut it out. If that catfish is active and that catfish is hungry and your bait is rolling back there and you've got one of those Uncle Lou's dragon demons on there or a demon dragon style weight and it's making that thing rattle, when that fish comes up and he sees that and he's got that scent and he picks up that scent, he doesn't care whether that's moving or not. He's going to hammer it. So don't be afraid to leave your gut pockets in.
Yep. And I do variations too. I'll have like we were talking earlier before we started live. I'll put a variation. I'll put gizzard shad fillet on, and then I'll put a piece of chunk gizzard shad, and then it'll be some thread fin, and then chicken, and then whatever I got available to me.
Yeah.
But that's what I use. I use not 8/0 and up snail Uncle Lou's offsets, and when I'm dragging, I use these bad boys right here. These are these are Santee drifters by Jimmy Smith Fishing and Gear YouTube channel. He lives right down the road here too, and they're awesome. And I've only lost 5 since I've been using his stuff. They don't get hung up.
He does make an awesome product. I love using them. He's got that breakaway swivel in the top of them. And guys, just because you're a bank fisherman does not mean you can't use those drifting weights. A lot of the places I fish for my big flatheads and stuff, there's a lot of rock, a lot of down timber and stuff like that, where your traditional egg sinkers or no-roll sinkers are going to get hung up and break you off every single time. Those drifting weights, especially if you rig it Santee style, where you have the float or the rattle that picks your hook up off the bottom, you will snag up 90% less with that dragging weight. Yep. You'll be surprised. Even guys, even if you're fishing an area that's got a few snags in it, that's something I've noticed. Having that float on there to get that hook up off the bottom, if you're coming through the brush and stuff like I am, that sinker will come through the brush, and with that hook, it keeps it up higher in a water column, so you snag a lot less. That's a
yeah, exactly.
A
lot of guys don't know. A lot of guys don't know. Even though you're bank fishing, you can still troll. You can troll that bait in, cast it out there, and troll that bait in. Troll it.
Yep.
I used to do that from the bank all the time, and it worked.
Yep.
A lot of people just think they just got to throw it out there and leave it set. No, you control that bait. You just because you're bank fishing don't mean you can't go trolling. You control that bait all the way in, and do it, and your hookup ratio dramatically increase.
Yep. Epic Tim Scott, Epic Catfishing. He makes that point very clear. A lot of the guys, they'll throw their bait out there, and even in his boat, when he casts out, he'll leave that bait there for a while. And he'll start moving that bait back towards him. Because sometimes you can throw out, and you may be on the back side of that fish. And if that current is going away and it's taking that scent trail away from that fish, he's never going to know that's there. But as you're bringing it in periodically, every so often, you're increasing your chances, because at some point, you're going to get that scent trail in front of that fish, and you have a better chance of getting him to come in and take the bait. Cat Chasers wants to know, night bank fishing or day bank fishing?
I don't think it really matters, but until this time of year, your cooler temperatures, like we were talking earlier, your cooler temperatures, if you're bank fishing at night, them fish are laying kind of dormant during the day, during the heat of the day, and they'll come out of them deeps up on them shallow flats, feeding at nighttime. So this time of year, I would say night, but during the fall, winter, springtime, I don't think it really matters day or night.
What I noticed down here is during your colder weather, late fall, early spring, the day bite is a lot better. You'll notice as darkness falls and it gets dark, that water temperature, and I'm fishing shallow water, guys. So remind, this is all in shallow water. In that shallow water, when that sun goes down and that water temperature starts to drop, those fish will move out. They'll go back into that deeper water, because the water temperature is not fluctuating as much,
Right.
or it's more consistent and more stable. Now, in the heat of the summer, when the summertime's gone, you got the dog days of summer. During the daytime, then fish are going to be in the deep holes, but at night they come out to feed. So you want to find you a shallow flats where they feed at, that's adjacent to deeper water where you've got a creek channel or something coming through there. And so during the summertime and the heat of the days, night fishing is definitely going to be better.
And if you guys don't know, download the Navionics app.
Yeah.
Download the Navionics app. It will be a great tool added to your toolbox trying to figure out where these fish are. I got, very expensive electronics on my boat, but I still use Navionics app on my phone for, contour changes and all that stuff. Navionics is an awesome tool to add to your toolbox, even if you're a bank fisherman. It'll let you know the drop offs, the steep drop offs, the big shallow flats. It'll show you all that.
Yeah. Cat Chasers, he says, I'm mainly day fishing. I've had my butt handed to me this year. You've got to know what water depth you're fishing and what time of the year it is. If you're fishing in deep water during the day, and there's fish use that travel area, you can get on them. But if you're fishing shallow water during the heat of the day, your success is going to be very minimal. I mean, you may luck into some, but you're not going to have consistent results.
Yeah, you'll catch a straggler here and there, but.
And guys, anytime y'all have questions, feel free to hit me up on Facebook anytime. You can email me at countryboycatfishing@gmail.com. I will be more than happy to answer any questions you've got, because that's my goal. I want to see you become successful, just like this statement here where he's fished daytime and he hasn't caught any fish. That's a challenge to me because now I want to get him on some fish. I want him to get some fish. I see David Hamilton made it in, fishing the UK Glasgow. We were just talking about him earlier.
Yep. The pike commander.
Yep. J&S, Johnny, welcome. J&S Outdoors. I'm trying to get him on the show, guys. He fishes in Oklahoma here as well. He's up on Kerr Lake and Little River Channel there. I want to get him on and kind of get him advertised out and get some people to see him. And guys, a lot of this, when people come on the show, we've got big names, we've got smaller channels. I want to get these smaller channels to grow, and that's the whole point. I want to see them grow. I want to see everyone be successful. Glasgow says, guys, I'll show you a rig that you could try. I'll do it live so you can see. We'll be there watching.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You get, like we was talking earlier, David, you get a lot of these guys that are just dead set on their ways. That's all they were taught. And they're not apt to change. You've got to change with the conditions. You got to change with how your lake or river conditions are constantly changing. They're constantly changing. Yep. Just like when I went out Monday on my live stream, I noticed 4 big stumps that had floated up that wasn't there a week and a half ago.
Yep.
Conditions are constantly changing, guys. You gotta adapt as they change. You can't just be, well, my daddy told me the only time you can catch catfish was at night, and that's where I'm going catfish. No, you got to experiment. If you don't know and you want to know, like David said, reach out to us. We'll help anybody out, man.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to ask somebody. Fishing with the Dots got a question. I want to say real quick, Reese come in.
My leaders average anywhere from 18 to 24 inches long. That's about the size I usually use. Wintertime, I'll shorten them up to about 16 inches. It's just because I've tried, tested and tried different lengths to see what worked. But this time of year, usually a 2 foot leader, 18 inches to 2 foot. And in the wintertime, I'll shorten them down to about 16 inches. That's just what I found that works for me on my body of water.
I'm going to add to this question because I know a lot of people will ask it. I get asked this a lot. Does your leader length differ from cut bait versus live bait?
Live bait, yes. I'll run a longer leader with live bait. Got this way so they don't get tangled up. And you know how live bait does when you got it out there, it's kicking around, acting like it's going back crap crazy. But yeah, longer leader for live bait. And like I said, 18 inches is usually the norm. I measure my leaders out. I actually measure them. I just don't say, hey, that's 2 foot. I'll measure my leaders out, and that's how I do it. But live bait, yes, longer leader just to keep the tangle factor from getting involved in the whole situation.
I do the same thing. My live bait leaders are longer. For one, it gives that bait fish more room to roam. He's more active. And if you've got a rattle or you've got the Demon Dragon style floats from Uncle Lou and them that's got the rattles in them, the more that fish is moving, the more vibration and rattle he's giving off. And also, if your leader is 3 foot and that bait fish is 12 inches from your sinker, and that big fish comes in and that bait fish starts to take off, he's got some range to run. And what that does, catfish are predators. When they see that fish trying to evade, it triggers that predator instinct in them.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get a lot better takedown when they hit that bait because they know that bait's trying to escape. When they hit it, they will hit it hard. If it's on a short leash and it's at the end of that leader and that fish hits it and that fish just sits there, that fish is not going to be as aggressive as he is as when he hits that bait and it starts to take off, because then he's like, man, it's trying to get away. And their predator instinct comes out and they will get very, very aggressive.
Absolutely.
I like a longer leader with the live fish. With any live bait, I like a longer leader. I see Straight to the Point Outdoors made it in.
So straight to the point. How y'all doing?
Straight to the point, limb line tips. I don't really limb line fish anymore. I did when I was younger. I noodled. I run trot lines, jug lines. I've done just about everything. The biggest tip I can give you on the limb lines, and it's the same thing if you're fishing these creeks or these rivers and the fish are spawning, they're coming up to get ready to spawn. That's where you catch them moving a lot. They're either going to spawn, they're coming back from spawn, or they're just in these holes. A lot of guys want to throw way out in the middle. Don't throw way out in the middle. Your current seams and your breaks are usually along the banks of these rivers and these creeks. And that's where you're going to catch your fish. You don't have to throw out there. You can drop off no more than 3 to 5 foot off the bank, and that fish will be up in there feeding.
Yeah, I can't add much to that because I don't limb line. I do trot line, but I've never been a limb liner.
Down here, when the creeks get up really bad, everything floods into Red River. So usually it takes our creeks to rise 3 times. If they'll come up bank full 3 times and they start running that, it triggers them fish out of Red River, and they'll start coming up that river, up them creeks, and they'll start coming up in there to get ready for spawn. They'll be feeding and they'll be prepping for spawn. A lot of those places, they're really grown up. They don't have easy access to, and a lot of guys will do that limb line because they can throw that limb line out and fish all night. Uh, if they don't want to sit there and fight the bugs and stuff, they'll go out and they'll bait it. They'll throw that limb line out, and they're still fishing. And I just don't do it anymore, guys. A lot of these creek banks are steep, they're muddy. I'm older. I'm not as agile as I used to be, so I don't do it anymore. So straight to the point. I hope that helped and answered your question. See, Bottom Feeders is in here. Hey, Bottom Feeders, welcome.
What's up, Bottom Feeders?
Chrissy Brown, welcome.
Chrissy.
I'm trying not to miss anybody's questions, guys. If I miss a question and I do not ask it, post it back in chat because I'm scrolling down through chat trying to keep up. Hey, Randall. And I want to get everyone's question up there and get them answered.
Yep.
Walkers, welcome.
And there ain't a dumb question, y'all. No such thing as a dumb question. The only dumb question is the question you don't ask.
Yep. There's Brandon, Catfishing Dreams. I'm just now catching up. Trying to go down through and see if I missed anything.
I sent a question from Avid, I think.
Yep, I just seen it. Ledges, drop off, and channels. Which do you prefer?
I like fishing two of them. I like fishing ledges adjoining to a channel or to a creek or an old creek bed, and I like fishing drop offs. I did that actually on the live Monday. We've got one in particular. We've got a great big, huge clam bed out here as you come out of the mouth of the creek into the main lake. It's about from point to point to point is about 100 yards, about a football field from each of the 3 points is a triangle. And it's real shallow on top. It's like 3 to 4 foot in places. And it drops off on one edge down into like 16 foot of water. And on the back side of it, it drops off into 34 foot. I love when I can get my anchor to hold. If not, I use a concrete block on that clam bed because you can't hardly get an anchor to souse down in that because it's so hard. I like setting up on top of it and casting right onto those steep drop offs. And I love it. It's usually some really good action and usually really good fish.
Yep. C3+1 made it in. Welcome. If you're in a boat, you got a fish finder. Your channels and your ledges. When you go over them, you can kind of tell if them fish are hunkered down way in the bottom. The chances are they're usually not feeding. They're not active. If you come over and you see that ledge and that drop off, and they're right up on the top of that edge, they're staged. They're in feeding position. They will be more active. So depending on what the fish are doing, it tells me where I need to fish.
Yeah,
you got to pay attention.
I've seen them in that same spot on that 34 foot drop off edge. I've seen them stacked in there like train cars, right on top of one another, right down the bottom. And I threw everything in the name of God at them, and they wouldn't
get them to bite.
Couldn't get them. Couldn't buy them to bite. Couldn't pay them to do it.
Yeah.
But when they're halfway up on there, when they're like at that in between mark, about 17 foot of that drop off, that's when you usually bust a good one. When they're sitting down that edge.
And especially if they're at the top edge. If they're at the top of that drop off where it starts to break, they're sitting there and they're ambushing. They're waiting for some bait to come by so they can nail it.
Yep.
Chris Uselton made it in. Welcome, Chris.
What's up, Chris?
But at certain times, ledges, drop offs, the channels, they can all be great. Guys, you can even figure out where the fish are at bank fishing. If you fish with multiple rods, don't go out there and throw them all out in the deepest part of the channel. Stagger your lines, throw
Yep.
them at different depths, and try different depths, try different baits. Figure out what the fish want. Uh, I was in Tim Scott's live stream the other day, and I mentioned on air that I figured another piece of the puzzle out on these little local lakes. Uh, these little local lakes that are close to my house, they haven't been taken care of for several years, and the fishing population has went way down. And they've just started restocking them. Next year, they're going to stock them back with catfish and stuff. But I noticed no matter what I did on these bodies of water, we were not catching catfish out of them consistently. The catfish are few and far in between. I know that, but you should still be able to get a bite. So the other night we were out there and we were bluegill fishing. And I just happened to be in the right spot at the right time. And as it started getting dark, I seen all these crawdads come out on top of the rocks. Well, that triggered something in my mind because there's no shad in this lake. They didn't have bluegill in them till we started bringing them in and reintroducing them to them. And they started to spawn and we're catching bluegills now. But when I seen all them crawdads and no other form of bait fish, that tells me that not only the bass and the catfish and your sand bass and stuff, even your small bluegill are up in there in them rocks eating them crawdads. So when I went to those lakes and I could not buy a bite on perch or shad or anything like that, because their key bait in that lake is that crawfish, crawdads. So I'm going to have to go back out there with crawdads and fish the same places on the same body of water and see what transpires, because now I know that that's their bait. That's their preferred bait in that lake. That's what they have. That's what those fish are used to. And you can catch fish on baits like the chicken and stuff that the fish are not used to, but your best odds are always going to be use what
natural forage
eating. Yep.
I was talking to John Orler the other night, and I think it was last Friday night. He caught it had been slow, and he caught a couple, 4 or 5 pound channels, and he cut one of them open and cut his belly up and see what it was eating on. That's what they'd been chowing down. He said that channel cat's belly was full crawdads, plumb full crawdads, and he fishes the Maumee River up in Ohio.
Straight to the point. I seen this, and I'm going to answer it. I know you did it as a joke, but the best fisherman in the world is the one that never stops learning.
Exactly.
You can learn from your skunks. You can learn from your success. You can go out. You can learn from other people, other anglers, different bodies of water. If you are not learning, you're falling behind. There is something you can learn from every single trip and experience on the water. And the best cat fisherman in the world, or bass angler, whatever you're fishing for, if you want to be the best, you have to be not afraid to ask questions, and you have to be willing to adapt, evolve, and learn.
Yep. Absolutely. You got to study a lot of different factors. Fishing ain't just blindly going out and chunking a bait in the water. You got to look at your barometer. You got to look at your winds conditions, which way the wind's coming, your water temp, pH. There's so many factors involved. It's not just blindly going out there and winging a bait out and crossing your fingers. We ain't 15-year-old kids no more going out on Friday night catfish. Yep. You know what I mean?
See, Uncle Lou made it in. Guys, that's the biggest advice I can give you as an angler, if you're going out and you're fishing for catfish or whatever species you're fishing for, don't get the tunnel vision. Don't get locked in to where, well, I caught a fish on this last year in this spot. The conditions may not be the same as they were in that spot last year. You've got to pay attention to the conditions, the weather, what's going on, pre-spawn, post-spawn, what time of the year it is, water levels, every little variable like that affects that fish. The barometric pressure, we all know that has an effect on their swim bladders. You got to pay attention to everything that's going around. Don't just say, "Oh, I'm going out there fishing," and be one of them guys that just go sit out on the bank and you're like, "Man, I never catch any fish." You're doing the
Right.
same thing over and over. If you look up the definition of insanity, it will tell you it's doing the same thing every single time, expecting a different result. Uh, don't be afraid to change things up, guys. Try different things. Uh, you know,
Exactly.
you get a lot of that with baits. You know,
And just because you caught a fish in a certain spot last year, don't mean, or last week, don't mean you're going to go back to that same spot and catch a fish again in that same spot, because them fish are constantly moving, they're changing. Now, not that's excluding flatheads, because they kind of stay in a
area.
certain area, certain, they got their own certain domain that they hang out in. But as far as blues, them blues, they travel, son. They follow
Yeah.
the bait. And just because you caught a fish here last week, don't mean you're gonna go back here the next week and catch a fish in that same spot. Ain't gonna happen usually.
And it changes from day to day.
Yeah.
You can be out there fishing and catch them one day and go back to that same spot and nothing's happening. When that happens, the first thing should trigger in your mind what is different.
Yep.
What is different? And
What
then
changed?
you
What changed from yesterday to today?
yeah, you start to put the pieces of the puzzle together. You're like, when I have these conditions, the bite is on. When I have these conditions, the bite is off. So, in order for me to be more successful, I need to put myself in a situation where the conditions are the same as they were the day before. That may mean changing spots. Don't be afraid to travel around on the water, to move and try different things. Uh, hey, Roger, Muskrat Adventures made it
What's
in.
up, Roger?
Roger. Uh, so don't be afraid to try different things,
And
especially in
take notes. And take notes. If not
yeah,
mental notes, take physical notes. Okay, I caught 15 fish. When you get back in, I caught 15 fish. You know, and it makes it easier now with electronics we got. I can I can drop a pin and I can add a note right into my electronics now. I can drop a pin and type in the condition, or what was going on that day. I can type that in. But if you don't have that, write down notes when you get back home. Okay, what was going on? Where was I at? How many fish did I catch? What was the water temperature? Where was the wind? What was the barometer? Da da da. You know, was it overcast? Was it sunny? You know,
yeah,
write it down, and you can refer to them, and you'll start seeing patterns.
yeah.
You'll start seeing patterns.
And guys, on lakes especially, wind direction controls a lot. Pay attention to the wind direction because it controls the plankton, which controls the bait fish, which is going to control your active feeding fish. Not all your fish will move, but the active feeding fish that are hungry are going to follow that bait fish. You hear people on the river and the lakes all the time, find the birds, find the bait, find the fish. Uh, in some cases, that is true. It doesn't work all the time, but you're giving yourself a better chance of success. When you go up, and you can kind of tell how the fish are staged as to what attitude they're in. Now, if you're bank fishing, you're not on a boat, you don't have the fish finder, you can't see what all is going on under the water. But those birds and those bait fish, if you're where the bait is and you're fishing, at some point if there is a feeding active fish in that area, you're going to come across them. You may have to put in time.
Well, that's happened to me on my lives this year since I started this channel. Uh, I've got a short out where I moved on the birds. Fishing have been slow, usually fish an hour, not really nothing. Birds
Yep.
come in. I had two other guys on the boat with me and dropped the trolling motor, and we trolling motored over to where the birds was, kind of creeped in, casted. It was like that, bite after bite, fish after doubles, triples. And I've had that. I had that on another live. Some people seen it. I've seen the birds move in on me, and it's been another slow day. And I drifted right into them birds. And as soon as I got into birds, double up,
Yep.
double up, bang, bang, bang. And birds will tell you a lot too. Not just the bait fish, birds. We got a lot of ospreys down here, and when the ospreys are really active, there's a lot of bait in the area. No, a
Yep.
lot of bait in the area. You'll see the osprey circling around, dive bombing the water constantly.
Yep.
Move. If you're in a boat, get in where them birds are. And funny you should say about the wind on this lake, especially. East wind, I won't even put my boat in the water. East
Yep.
wind won't do it. I mean, you're just fighting a losing battle.
Yep.
It just seems like it's a light switch. It flips on. East wind, no bite. West wind, southwest or southwest by west, or anything with a west wind in it is usually pretty good fishing with a 29 barometer reading. But east wind, I won't even put my boat in the water.
I'm
Won't do
not a
it.
fan of the east wind or the north wind. Anything that's not east or north, I can go to, even if it's southeast. If it's southeast, I can manage, but
Yep.
it cannot be dead east or north. Uh,
Yeah,
it,
it's pretty rowdy fishing north and east wind. East wind more predominantly for me. North wind is not really good. I mean,
no, you can
I'll fish
still
north
catch,
wind, but I will not. I absolutely refuse to fish an east wind. I won't
and
do
you
it.
can still catch fish, guys, in a north wind and an east wind, but it's a lot harder. You're going to struggle. You're going to put a lot of time, more time in, and trying to catch those fish. It's not as productive. So pay attention to that, guys, because you're a lot of people say, "Man, I went out all day and I didn't catch nothing." What were the conditions? Learn when you need to be on the water and when you need to be away from the water. Uh, you know, same thing with active feeding fish. Uh, a lot of your bigger fish, your blues, your flatheads, when they get big, uh, they may only feed once every 3 to 4 days. Uh, so if you're there on Tuesday and that fish is feeding on Thursday, it does not matter what you do on Tuesday. You're not going to get that fish to bite.
Right.
Fish on the bank. Now, a lot of the times when them fish are not active and they're not feeding, this is why controlled drifting and dragging baits has become so popular. It's another reason why bumping is so popular because that fish does not necessarily have to be actively feeding, but you're down there bumping him in the nose with that bait, and it's a reaction. I mean, they're going to smack it to get it out of the way. You make that fish mad enough, he will hit. That's why people have got into the dragging, the drifting, and the bumping so much because even an inactive fish, you can sometimes force them to react to your bait. Uh,
Right. And I drag a lot too because this time of year, the fit and where the weather's been here, they're busted up. They're busted up, and you got to find them. And you can cover a lot of water dragging or trolling or whatnot. And it's been really weird. The last 5 trips I've been out on, I've not caught a fish, not one fish on a rod behind the boat. Everything's been on planer boards. Every fish for the last 5 trips has been on planer boards. And that's something that is, I just come to realize, like, man, what's the difference here? What's going on? And I'm computing that now. So
I see Reef Robber made it in. This is Johnny with J&S. He fishes down here where I'm at. I'm in the southern part of Oklahoma. He's kind of up in the northeastern part. But Johnny, if your temps have been anything like ours have down here, uh, the catfish spawn should be starting to tail off. I know I'm quite a bit farther south than you, so I may be a week or so ahead of you, but they will start coming off. If you can find areas where the catfish are spawning at, if you know they went up the creek mouths, river mouths, or whatever that dumps into your body of water, and you know that's where the catfish spawn, the tail of the spawn should be coming pretty quick. So if you fish those areas, you're going to catch them fish coming off the beds, and also you have a chance at the smaller fish going onto the beds.
yeah, them hungry males.
Yeah, you can catch them going back and forth, but you want to be in the areas where the fish spawn. Because when they first come off them beds, they've been spawning, they're hungry, they're going to come out, they're going to feed really good, and they're going to get fattened back up and build their strength and their bodies back up. So if you can, look for areas where the fish are known to spawn, and that will improve your odds. Mike Turner made it in. Hey, Mike.
What's up, Mike? He's probably working tonight.
Mike Turner and Becca are two of probably the best moderators you can have. They are so quick on the links. It floors me how quick they are with the links.
Absolutely.
I have so many channels and so many people I have to go through and search down, and I go through one alphabetical list and then I start another alphabetical list. And, but
yeah, I was just doing a BS session the other night, and I had a bunch of trolls come in. Man, he was on them. He was on them right now, son.
That's exactly right. 3+1.
Yep.
A lot of your fish pull up into the shallow waters to spawn. Hey, Lee Evans. Lee Evans made it in. Welcome, Lee.
What's up, Lee?
Glad to see him in here. Glad to see Lee's doing better.
Absolutely.
Right before you went into the hospital, Lee had that accident, and it's great to see everyone back out, getting everyone back out fishing. I know it's a slow process, but it's great to see people back and see people fishing again. And it's been a pleasure.
I think he's going to be in that Iron Cat Bank Challenge, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Okay, now let's go over. Everyone talks about tackle. Let's go over some of the tackle you use. What are you? Do you solely use the Santee drifting weights? Do you use Santee rigs? Do you Carolina rig any?
I solely use Santee rigs, but I don't only use drifting weights. I use depends if I'm anchored up fishing. I'll use 3 to 4 ounce egg sinkers. But when I'm drifting or dragging baits, it's a Jimmy Smith Santee drifter on a Santee rig. I want to start trying a Kentucky rig. I've heard a lot of good things about a Kentucky rig. I've never used one, but that's in the future. For now, as far as tackle goes, like I said, I use Uncle Lou's hooks, 8 up to 12-aught hooks, offset circle hooks. I use my line. I strictly use mono. I don't use no braid. I use Andy. Is that straight? Andy, 30-pound for the main line, and I use Andy 50 to 60-pound for my leaders. I use no knot snails on all my hooks. But that's about the gist of it. Like I said, if I'm anchored up, I'll go to a egg sinker, but when I'm drifting, I use Santee drifters solely because I just don't tear up as much equipment, because catfish equipment is expensive, especially if you're trying to drag. And I've done it before I got into the Santee drifter weights. Uh, I'd tear up a junkyard. I'd tear up all kind of equipment trying to drag egg sinkers. When you're trying to drag egg sinkers through that stuff, they're just so big and bulky and don't slip through the. You know how they go. The
Yep.
the the cylindrical. I use those. I've actually got some drifting sticks as well. I've used those a couple times and I ain't had no problem with them. I just can't get them big enough around here. Epic catfishing. Professor Catfish is in the house.
Yeah. Alicia Burnett made it in also.
Hey, Alicia. But that's mainly what I use. I use because I don't fish. I fish a lake. I don't fish the river. I'll upsize my tackle if I go to the river because the hazards with rivers. You're more apt to uh, get a nick in your line, and I'll upsize my tackle. My main line I'll go up to 50 pound, and my leader line I'll go up to 80 or 100 pound leader if I fish a river. But for the lake, I don't need no more than 30 pound. This 30 pound Andy, I can't break it. I've got it when it gets hung up. If I don't want to get my reel spooled, I got to cut it. I can't break it. So I've been using it now for probably about 6 years, and I have not had no problems with the mono. Back in the day when I caught that great big 74, I was using braid then. That was when braid like first come out. It was like the
Yeah.
big thing. That was the big thing. Braid, braid, braid. Everybody yelling braid. And but I just see that braid will fray really bad. If it gets a little nick in it, it'll fray. And I haven't been a fan of it since.
Little,
Oh,
that's exactly what we're here for. See, Brad Caudell made it in.
what's up, Brad?
I'm
That's
going
a
to give
simple
you some
man.
advice. Research the gear you're going to fish with, even your line. Now, TJ likes to use the Andy Monster line. I see a lot of people use it. And I don't have nothing bad to say about the line. I will say, Andy line, if it's rated for 30 pounds, it's going to break right at that 30 pounds. You're not going to go too much above that 30 before that line fails. Uh, the line that I use, uh, I've caught 40 and 50-pound fish on 25-pound test line. It's not going to break. It's not going to fail. But the bigger line you use, the less line capacity you have. And like TJ mentioned, when you snagged up, it's not going to be, you're not going to just pull the rod a couple of times and it's going to break. You're going to have to work to break it. I know a lot of people like the Andy because the Andy has less memory, but I like the strength. So I use mono also because a lot of the places I fish, braid will not cut it. They'll destroy braid within 2 minutes. But I like the Berkeley Big Game. Uh, I use it because it's super, super abrasion resistant. And a 25-pound test line or a 30-pound test line is not going to break at 30 pounds. Uh, it's very, very forgiving. It has a lot of stretch in it. The Big Game does have more memory than the Andy. But guys, you just have to go and figure out what size fish you're fishing for and what you want. If you don't like the memory, then the Andy line is going to be what you like. It's going to feel better. You're going to enjoy it better. If you're not worried about the memory and you're worried about a fish breaking, get a more abrasion resistant line. So research your gear because every piece of tackle is going to be the difference between success and failure. I see
And you
wild.
got to be prepared for every time you go out. You potentially got a fish of a lifetime. There's a potential you're going to catch a fish of a lifetime every single time you go out fishing. So be prepared for that. Uh, you know, a lot of people don't think that way. I don't catch big fish. Well, every time you cast that bait out there, you're potentially able to catch a fish of a lifetime. And not, if you're not prepared, then you're going to be crying the blues when you hook into him and then you snap off.
Yeah.
I see that, Dot. I see that question from Dot.
Before we get to that question,
Go ahead.
public walkers, that's what we're here for. If you need any information, any help, like I said, feel free to look me up on Facebook under David Zimmerman, or you can email me at countryboycatfishing at Gmail. Uh, Anytime, guys, message me on Messenger. It's usually quicker than my email. But any questions you have, if you ask, I promise I will answer and I will get back to you.
Same here. Anybody needs anything, holler at me. You can
We
find
have
me
so
on
many
Facebook,
people.
Instagram, YouTube, whatever. But
Yeah.
as far as this question from Dot, I'm gonna answer this best way I know how. Rods and reels. The thing with those it's kind of like car brands. Everybody has their own preference. You'll have your Ford guy, your Chevy guy, your Dodge guy, your Oldsmobile, whatnot. That's the same thing with rods and reels. I think it's mostly personal preference, what you like. But as far as a beginner rod, an ugly stick, you can't really go wrong with an ugly stick. They've set records
Yep.
on ugly sticks, and they're affordable. They're affordable. They're like $39, $40 or something at Walmart. But once you start getting into it and fishing a lot, it kind of gets like the car brands, don't you think, David? As far as personal preference, one guy's a Chevy guy, one guy's going to badmouth the Ford guy, da 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 da.
Well, it depends what fish you're going after, also.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to go out and you're going to be fishing water that has 40 and 50-pound fish in it, get you a medium heavy rod. You want something that's going to have that backbone. If you're fishing waters and all you're going to catch is your biggest fish, maybe 10, 15 pounds or so, go with the medium action rod. If you go get a rod that's too stiff, you're going to take all that fight out of that fish. It'll be like a winch. You're just reeling them in. It's not going to be as fun as catching that same 10-pound fish on like a medium action rod. You're going to enjoy it. You'll be out there hooping and hollering, and that 10-pound fish on that medium rod will seem like you're catching a 40-pound fish. And Dot, there's nothing wrong with fishing on the bank. Bank fishing is all I do anymore, and I catch big fish from the bank. It can be done, but I agree with
100%.
TJ on the ugly stick. It's a trusted rod. It's been around for many, many years. It's inexpensive, but don't just focus on the rod brand. Pay attention to the weight of the rod. The action of the rod makes a ton of difference because only
our water, we have big fish in this lake, but I'm not out here buying heavy action rods. I run medium heavies. Every rod I have is a medium heavy action rod. Every single one of them. I've got 12 rods. Every one of them medium heavy action rod, because I'm not surf fishing and they will pull in a big fish. Guy caught a 109-pounder on a freaking ugly stick here last year. Medium heavy, 7 foot. I think it was 7'6" ugly stick. 109-pound blue on rod and reel.
Yep. And same thing on your rod length, Dot. If you can hit deep water from the bank, with ease. If you're not having to cast 100 yards or more to get into deeper water, you can use a shorter rod. The 7'6" is fine. But if you're going to have to throw out there farther to get to the deeper water, I would get a longer rod, because with that longer rod, you're going to get farther casting. And that will allow you to fish with that same rod year round. You're not going to have 12-foot rods and 7'6" rods and have a garage full of rods, depending on the situation, just so you can fish. Uh, Tailor your rod to fit you and your fishing conditions. What you're fishing for, how far are you going to cast, all that stuff uh, you have to take into consideration.
Yeah, fishing from the boat, I don't need nothing more than a 7'6" rod. I've got
No,
I've got two 10-footers, but they're overkill. They're overkill. I mean, they're good for if I want to go bank fishing and hit a deep hole like you're saying, and I can't get to. They got a lot of whip on them, and you can chunk it out there a mile and a half. But for me, being on a boat, I don't have to cast far. I chunk my lines out verily now. I don't hardly cast. I chunk my lines out, let my line go, and start dragging. If I'm dragging, and then if I'm anchored up, I still don't have to cast far because I'm in a boat. Boat and bank fishing is like day and night as far as your equipment and all that.
you got to tailor it to your fishing style.
Yeah.
Alicia, we talked about that earlier before you got in here, especially if you're using circle hooks, snell the hook. Uh, it's going to make 200% different in your hookup ratio. And when I say snell the hook, look up a good snell knot, the no knot snell, the Doc Lang snell. You want to make sure you snell your hook properly, because that will affect it also. Uh, I like the no knot snell. I like the Doc Lang snell. Both, they're very great, super strong. They will not fail. Uh, so don't be afraid, but snell it. Uh, let's
Yeah, I
see.
snell my hooks and I prove clinch knot or polymer knot my swivels.
I see Brent with Fins and Fowl come in. If you have any questions, Alicia, look on my channel. I go in depth on a tackle video. I show you how I tie each knot. I show you the knots I can tie, where I tie them, why I tie them, and I go over everything. I show you how I rig the Demon Dragon style floats, the slotted peg floats, the oval peg floats. I explain why I use them, when I use them, because I do everything with a purpose. I don't do anything without purpose. I'm not out there uh, trying to do all this extra stuff. Uh, as you can tell from my live streams and my channel, I keep everything super simple. I'm not out there trying to be flashy and got the neon everywhere, and I'm not that. I'm just giving you straight up hardcore fishing information to help y'all become better anglers and to make you more successful. Uh, it will definitely help and improve your odds tremendously. And next time we see you in chat, Alicia, it won't be I missed a big one. You'll be telling us how you got that big one in that new boat. And that's what we're here for.
Yep. Absolutely.
So, guys, if anyone else has any questions, uh, I know we've already been on over an hour, but if you have any more questions, be sure to ask. Uh, I don't want you to miss this opportunity.
Now I did a test. I'm gonna bring this up, David. I did a test on a Demon Dragon. I found that I can't get them to hold a 4-inch Demon Dragon now. They won't hold up a big, huge chunk of bait.
Nope.
I did a test on it, and the only way I can get them hold up a bait is to put them on with a peg float as well. A peg float and a Demon Dragon. The only way I can get that bait to hang up like this. With a Demon Dragon,
Well, I won't use the Demon Dragon on bigger baits. If you go watch Keith at Fishing and Stuff, he does an awesome video on
Yeah.
them Demon Dragons and stuff. He does a comparison of the Demon Dragons, the peg floats, the oval floats, and he shows you how much weight they will float. And but Keith is awesome. I love watching his stuff, and he goes through all of them and he floats them, and it shows you exactly how that hook will float up off the bottom and how much weight it will actually suspend. Now remember, when you're watching videos like that and you're trying to suspend your bait in a bucket of water or a pool of water, if you do not have that bait on that hook, it's going to be a little bit different because that bait adds some buoyancy. So that bait itself will add buoyancy to that float. Not a lot, but take it into factor. And man, if you have any questions about the floats, the Demon Dragons, and how much weight and stuff they've done, go check out Keith on Fishing and Gear. He's got a great video on it. You will love it.
Yeah.
If you watch, a lot of people like the improved clinch knot. I use an improved modified clinch knot. I tie mine a little bit different than everybody else. There's one extra step in it. But in 40 years, I've never had that knot fail me. And I'll show exactly how I'm doing it. And when you see it, you'll be like, does it really make that much of a difference? And I don't know that it does. I just know that the way I do it, an old man showed me when I was a young man. And he said, you cannot break this knot. And I'm telling you, you will not break that knot. You can hook it to the core. You can do what you want. That knot will not fail you. And I know people think that's overkill, but it's not overkill to me. When I go out there, I do not want to lose a fish because of equipment failure.
Yep.
When you're
And check your gear every time you go out, man. Before you go out, night before you go out, check your leaders, check your line for abrasions, and change that out before you go out because it can make a difference between fish of a lifetime or a break off. People don't check and check your on your reels. Check your reels. Make sure they're lubed. Make sure the screws are tight. You know, set yourself up for success instead of being lazy and
yeah,
prevent a failure before it even has a chance of happening.
check your drag every single trip. And even if you're out there fishing all day, periodically check your drag. Make sure your drag has not stuck because sometimes that drag will stick. It happens, it's inevitable. And if you catch it before that big fish hits, you'll still catch that fish. If you wait until that fish hits and it hits and that drag's locked up, you just lost that fish.
Yep. Snap.
Yep. Guys, with your rods, let your rods and your reel and your line do the work for you. With mono, you have stretch. Braid, you do not. That's why you see a lot of people use mono leaders on the end of braid, is to give them some flexibility, and mono has better abrasion resistance. But between the stretch of your line, the action of your rod, and the drag of your reel, that's where all the work is done. You want all three of them to function as smoothly as possible. And guys, on your tackle, doesn't matter. You could go out there with the best reel on the market, the best rod on the market, and the best line on the market. If you're using a junk hook or you're not using quality tackle, it will fail you. Set yourself up for success from the end of your rod all the way to the reel. Quality hook. That hook is the first thing that comes in contact with that fish. If you fail at that hook, it does not matter what you have on the rest of that line.
Exactly.
So use good hooks. If you use swivels, like I use barrel swivels, I know Epic uses snap swivels. make sure they're weight rated for the fish you're going after. If you're catching 40 and 50-pound fish, don't go out there with a little tiny crappie swivel. You're not going to be impressed. You will not be happy with the results.
350-pound rated 3-way swivel.
Yep.
350-pound rated.
Yep. And guys, if you don't know, look on the package. On the package of your swivels, they will tell you what they're rated for.
Absolutely. So, absolutely.
You know, all right, there's a question in chat. I'm going to pick it up. I already know what it is, the answer for me. Favorite fish, would you rather catch the big blues or the big flatheads?
I know my answer.
Go ahead and give them your answer.
Flathead. Flathead by far, because I've caught
I'm
them.
the same way. I love catching them big blues. I love seeing them come up and that tail slap. But man, the raw power of that flathead and the surge in that rod when he's fighting and you feel it tugging, every move of that tail, you feel that surge and that power. If you want to get somebody addicted to catfishing, take them out and get them on a flathead. Once they get that first flathead, it will all be over from there. And,
yep. And there's a difference between a lake flathead and a river flathead. The fight is day and night. Day and night. The lake flathead still has that power, but that river flathead, oh my God. They're used to that current. Oh my God. It's day and night, the fight. It's day and night. That's for me, because like I said, my biggest ever flathead come out of the Ohio River in that freaking current. And my God, man. I was wore completely out. I laid down on the bank after we got him in, weighed him, and I put him back. I laid down on the bank, just laid there, and I was like, oh my God.
But them river fish live there. They're used to fighting that current, and they're very smart. They will use that current to their advantage. That's why when they're in that current and they're in that river, anytime you have current and moving water, when you hook that fish, do not horse that fish. If you horse that fish, you're going to lose him. If there is no tree that he's going to get around or a barge he's going to get under or something that he is going to break you off on, if you're out in the middle of the river, give that fish time. Let that rod and let that drag of that reel and that stretch of that line wear that fish out. Because if you try and horse them, you'll pull that hook from that fish's jaw. I've seen where people have caught them on trot line or they have hooked them and their drag is too tight, and that fish will actually rip the side of his jaw out, and you'll see that hole there. Fish are no different than people. They have a survival instinct. When you hook that fish is going to do everything in his power to get off that line before you get him in that boat. Yep. So do not horse a fish. I see guys do this a lot, and especially if you're not used to catching good fish, if you take somebody out, guys, and they're not used to catching big fish, and you get them on a fish, as it gets closer to the water, be there with them, talk them through. Do not just let them do it themselves, because I guarantee you that adrenaline rush is going to hit. And when that fish gets close to that boat and they see the size of that, the only thing going through their head is, I got to get it in the boat. Don't come off. Don't come off. I got to get it in the boat. Yep. And that they're going to try and force that fish and muscle that fish. And that's where you got less stretch in the line. You've got less action on the rod. And that drag is not as important because you're on such a short leash. The closer that fish is to the boat, the more important it is to let that fish have some play. Do not horse him.
Yep.
Uh, you know,
Let him run.
in certain situations, I know there's places that Epic fishes and some of these other guys on these rivers. When that fish bites, if you don't get him out of that cover, that fish is gone. You're not ever going to see him again. So I know there are times when guys have to horse them, but set yourself up, guys. You've got to have the right line for it. You've got to have a rod with a strong enough backbone to turn that fish and be able to force them. Your rod, your reel, your line, your hooks, everything you use on that line, your swivels, everything has to be set up to where you have the ability to horse that fish. Uh,
Absolutely. 100%.
there's there's Epic 130-pound blue versus a 90-pound flathead. I'll pick the flathead all day, every day. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I don't know. I don't know many people that do not prefer the flathead. That's what I'm trying to get my wife on. My wife has never caught a big flathead yet.
Oh, wow.
I want to get her
Make
on.
sure you're filming when she does.
Well, she has a bad shoulder. So I'm kind of worried about getting her on like a 30 or a 40 right off the bat. Because, you know, when they jerk and they pull like that, she may let them have the rod. I don't really know. I don't know how she's going to respond. Uh, I mean, that flathead, you can feel that power. It's just like someone down there just pounding you. And they'll work that forearm muscle. That's why I like rods with the longer butt. The
Yep.
longer butt, I can get it down my forearm. I can use that for leverage.
Yep.
That's another thing, guys. If you're going out to catch big catfish, do not go buy a pistol grip rod. Get you something with a longer butt on it, to where you've got some leverage on that fish. So, uh, but
Yep.
I want to get her on one of them flatheads, and I know if she ever feels that fight and she gets it in, uh, she'll be hooked. It'll be all it took.
100%.
Basic, guys. Whether you want to admit it or not, we are all in this chat. We are all on YouTube watching these different live streams for the same reason. It all started with one fish. Didn't matter if it was a bluegill, if it was a crappie, if it was a small channel cat. We're all here for that same reason. We've got that addiction, and that's why we're here. And if you ever get a chance to take someone out fishing and introduce them into this world, guys, do it. I don't care whether they're young, whether they're old. Take the time, because you may have just changed that child's life or that person's life.
That's the way. When I took that buddy of mine, it's a short video I got out, and he caught that 40-pound blue in 2 foot of water. The reaction that he had, he was in tears.
Yep.
And after we put the fish back, he was shaking. He shook like a leaf for like 15 minutes just to watch that and experience that and put somebody
That
on a fish
adrenaline
like that.
rush.
It's
Yeah.
I had more fun watching him than catching a fish that size.
I've got to give a big shout out. I was watching Snake River a while back, and he was out fishing this little pond with this fountain, and he's catching bluegill for bait for the next day. And this woman shows up with her grandson. And this grandson wants to fish. They got him a rod. It wasn't rigged up completely. They didn't know what to do. They come over to Snake River while he was live. He rigged that young kid's pole up for him, exactly what he needed to catch them bluegill. And he didn't have no bait. So that little boy, can I borrow a worm? Can I use one of your worms? So they put them worms on that kid's hook, and he went to catching them bluegill. And so exciting. you could hear the excitement in his voice, and it changed that kid's life.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
him on a path that very second, and you could hear this kid, and you know he's watched someone fish because when he hooked one, you could hear him yell, "Fish on!" And I mean, I was just as excited sitting on the couch. When that young boy went to screaming and hollering and catching them fish, man, I'm sitting here jumping up and down on the couch, and I am so excited. Stuff like that, guys, you will never ever believe the impact that something that simple has on that child's life or that person's life.
Yep.
So don't be afraid to help people. There's Corey with the Flatty Daddies. He made it back in. Hey, Corey.
Hey, Corey.
Uh,
Yeah, that's the thing. When we got the boat loaded up on the trailer. He's like, "Hey, TJ," he said, "Can I ask you a favor?" I'm like, "What is it, Patrick? What do you need, Bo?" He said, "Can I have the hook?" I cut the leader, swivel everything off. He said, and he put it on a plaque with a picture of it. And that was one thing about the fish he caught. He said, "My daddy fished all of his life up until the day he died. The biggest fish he ever caught was like 30 pounds." He said, "For
yeah,
me to catch that fish that my daddy chased all his life," he
yep,
said, "that means so much to me." And he put the fish hook and the whole leader on a plaque with a picture of his fish and then a picture of his dad's big fish. I thought that was just so awesome, man. Just to make somebody's day. That whole
well,
day, I didn't reel one fish in. I was letting him out here reel this right
yeah,
here. I grabbed the hook, grab it. If it went down, hand him right here. Take it, reel it in, and it made his day. And he's hooked on it now.
yep,
He wants to go fishing all the time.
yep. Brian B. Catfish made it in. Hey, Brian B. Uh, that's something people got to understand too, guys. I know there are people that go out there and fishing is a hobby to them. They just go out there to sit. They don't care whether they catch fish or not. But to most of us, it's a passion. And you can tell when you get people out there and you get them on fish and you see them hook into that fish and they're shaky, that adrenaline's running, or they're emotional, and you start to see those tears. Uh, Guys, there's are moments you can never change. They will be with them long after I'm dead and gone.
Yep,
All these young kids and people that I've took fishing are going to remember them fishing trips, even after I'm gone.
yep,
I will be remembered not for me, but for what I was, what I done for others.
yep.
Uh, and that leave a legacy, uh, leave something for these people, and always be willing to help. Uh, I went out early fall. Me and my wife got on the fish. Well, I got on the fish, not so much the wife. And I was catching these big fish, 30 and 40 pounds back to back. And there was people fishing beside me that come in, and they weren't catching anything, and they couldn't believe it. And every time this guy hooked into a fish, it would break off. And the guy never come over to me, but his wife and his son come over, and they got to seeing the fish, and they wanted to see them. And they're like, "What are you doing? What's different?" And I got to talking to them, and I figured out that they were using braid. I'm like, "You can't use braid in this lake." And they were from a different town. They drove all that way just to fish. And so I opened the back of my wife's envoy, and I always carry extra tackle and stuff in there. I showed them what line and stuff I was using. I explained to them why, because people see braid and they're like, 100-pound braid, that'll hold anything. No, it won't. It's
Mm-mm.
not abrasion resistant. You get it around the rocks and the stumps, a 5-pound fish will shred that 100-pound braid.
Yep.
Uh,
Fray it, and it'll break like a.
yeah, a feather.
Yep.
And so I opened up, I showed them, and I keep extra line. So I told them, I said, take that braid off your rod, spool it with this. I got sinkers, I got hooks, I got swivels, whatever you need, I'm there to help. I'm going to help you rig up to where you can be successful, to where when you go fishing, it's a positive influence and not something you regret.
Right. Absolutely. And when people can have a day like that, then they're hooked.
Yeah.
They're hooked.
Here you go. Here's a question for you from Brent, Fins and Fowl.
Drifting socks. I need one. I need one. I don't have one. Uh, always go bigger than you think you're going to need, though. When you get a drift sock, if it says this is the size of boat this drift sock will use, go the next size bigger. Because there's going to be times you're out there drifting and that wind's going to be blowing, and if you put a 4 or 5 gallon buckets out, you ain't going to slow your drift. And that what's rated for your boat ain't going to slow you down. You're just going to be dragging it through the water like it ain't nothing. And always go bigger on a drift sock. Like if it says your boat, however big your boat is rated for 36-inch drift sock, go get the 5-footer. Get the bigger drift sock because you're going to need it. Plain and simple. I need one. I tore one up and haven't replaced it yet.
Dan, I'm sorry if I missed your question. Pop it back into chat real quick, Dan. Guys, if I miss any question, do not be afraid to let me know. Pop it back into chat. I want to get it up here. I want to get it addressed. What about Dan? When I talk about horsing the fish, you get people that lock the drag down. They want to tighten it up and not let that fish run. And when you do that, you take all that stretch out and you're relying on the action of that rod. And if your action's too tight, it will pull the hook out of the fish's mouth. They will pop it back loose. That's why a lot of times, guys, when you snag up and you have a fish on there, you lose that fish because that fish has wrapped you around something, tied you off to something. He's took all that stretch and that giveaway. So when he pops, he can pop that hook loose. He can pop it out. You got to have that stretch and that flexibility in there.
And you just hit on something that
fish.
It just dawned on me that people don't talk about a lot. If you get a fish and he takes you down and wraps you around a tree, don't give up on that fish. Don't give up on that fish. If you can wait him out, sometimes he'll work his way back out. Don't just, he took me around a tree stump. Daggone it, cut the line. Wait that fish out. Keep tension on him. And sometimes they'll come right back out of that. They'll come right back around that thing. And a lot of people don't think about that.
You owe it to that fish to give that fish time. You do not want to just cut that line and leave that fish swimming out there with that hook, that sinker, and that leader in his mouth where he can get it wrapped around something. He could be out there and be stuck until he frees himself or breaks it off, and then he's going to have a big scar.
Yep. Don't give up on them. They'll work their way out sometimes. And I've done it. I've had it happen. I just kept on him.
I've been hooking my live crappie through the back towards the tail and also gone through the mouth. Have had a good big hits, but no takers. Should I try a double hook rig? Dan, a lot of the times, you'll get times when the fish are short hitting, and that is the only time I would use like a stinger hook. I'm not a fan of the stinger hooks. Most of the time, one hook will get it done. If you're having a lot of times when they hit it, but they won't take the bait, it's probably a smaller fish. And they'll come up and they will kill your live bait over and over and over again. If you downsize your bait, you can use the same hook and downsize your bait. That will help. You don't always have to tie a stinger hook. You can downsize your bait, and it's easier for them to get in their mouth, and you'll have more successful hookups.
Yeah, sometimes if you're hooking them back in the tail, and you've tried hooking them in the mouth, try hooking them underneath the dorsal.
Well, see, in the double hook Kentucky rig, you hear a lot of people talk about it. That's kind of where it come into play. With that double hook Kentucky rig, when they would not hit a decent sized piece of bait, people would have one rod rigged up on that double Kentucky hook style, and they would cut their bait half in size, in half, and put smaller pieces on each hook. And big fish sometimes will come on a 1 inch piece of bait.
Yep.
If that's what the fish are after, that's what you're going to have to do.
Yep. Absolutely.
I horse them in the first 5 feet, then I let the rod handle it. If you watch it, because I was aware if it was 50 or less, I communicated, commented on the head shakes. Yeah, yeah, that's what's kind of nice. If you watch Epic, Tim Scott and his lives, when that fish bites and he sets that hook, when that fish starts to fight and he feels them head shakes, he can tell you what that fish is. And he's pretty accurate, guys. If you watch it, it's kind of creepy, but he has
Yeah.
caught so many of these big fish. It's like muscle memory. When he feels that fish, it clicks that switch in his brain, and he's like, "Well, this is what's on the end of it." Uh, he is such an amazing source of information.
Yes.
If
He's
not
forgot
watching
more
him,
about catfishing than most of us will
most
ever know in our entire lifetime.
yeah,
And that's a big shout out to Professor Catfish.
the other night I had one about ripped the whole tail off my crappie. Had to be a good sized blue. Not necessarily, Dan. How big was your bait? When you got your bait back in, pay attention to your bait, guys. When you see, look for where it hit that bait at. You can tell where it hit that bait at, and with the flat head, they're hair lipped. So you can tell by the bite marks on that bait whether it was a flathead, whether it's a blue, and what size it is. Because them big blues, when they hit it, if he did not get that bait all the way in his mouth when he hit it, there would be a crush mark.
Yep.
He slammed it, and then he will open up and suck the rest of that fish into his mouth. But a lot of your smaller fish, and when I say smaller, it could be 5 to 8 pounds, they will hit super, super aggressive. And you will think you got a big fish on there. And it's not. Uh, Same thing with alligator gars. You'll see these gars hit, and you think, man, that thing has loaded up that rod, and it's small gar. They're just moving, and they have such a small gar. They have very minimal bite pressure on there, so
Right.
it's not like they got the whole bait in their mouth. They can just have a piece of that bait in their mouth, and it's still going to give the effects of a big takedown and a big fish.
It was like Monday when I was out. All them fish I caught were 10 pound, and every one of them hit it like they were 40 pounders. They were knocking my planer board sideways when they was hitting the bait. They was hitting it that hard. You think but in their mind, that's just how blue does. They hit it like a freaking grenade when they hit a bait, and
Yeah,
it'll mistake you. You'll be like, oh, that thing's big, and then you go reeling him in like, I ain't as big as I thought it was. Drift socks will, yeah, they'll keep you tracking pretty straight. But if you really want to track straight, make sure you got one of them, got a trolling motor, or you got a trolling motor with iPilot, and that'll track you straight. That'll track you straight. Drift
yeah,
sock is basically to slow you down, to slow your drift down. Like when I was out there 2 weeks ago, I was drifting at 1 mile an hour. I was still catching fish, but when I was having my greatest success was when I was drifting 0.3 to 0.5 miles an hour. And that's what a
yeah.
drift sock does. It slows your drift down. the rate of your drift.
Yeah. Brad Caudell, I do the same thing. I hook them up by their front pin. And I love control drifting. I know a lot of guys do the free drifting. They'll get out there and just float, and wherever it takes them, it takes them. But I like the control drifting, especially guys. All right, if you're fishing ledges and those fish are situated on that ledge, if you go down there and you drift across that ledge one time, and you may drift 2 more miles downriver, and you're not on that ledge no more. So you're wasting a lot of time in dead water.
Yep.
With the controlled drift, you can go down through there, mark that ledge, and watch, because you'll see fish on the bottom. You'll see if there's fish in that area or not. If you're not seeing fish, don't bother fishing there. Find your bait and find your active fish.
That's like trying to go deer hunting at the mall, y'all.
Yep. Chart you out a trail and stay where the fish are. You don't need to be drifting or wasting time in water where the fish are not. Maximize your time on the water by staying where the fish are.
That's before I even start a drift. I'll take a swoop I might ride around for 45 minutes, seeing where the fish are. And if I mark a bunch of fish, I'll go back up and drift back down through them.
Yeah.
Go back up, drift back down through them. You know, but it's like I just said, it's like trying to go deer hunting a mall. If you're drifting you're drifting flat and there ain't nothing out there, you're wasting your time. You're burning daylight, son.
See, Brent, I know exactly where you're talking about in the places because we fish some of the same waters. Man, your trolling motor is going to be your best friend.
Yep.
You want to use that trolling motor, and also it not only controls the direction of your drift, but control the speed of your depth. In colder water, you need to drift slower because the fish are not more as aggressive. In warmer water, like now with the water temperatures up, man, you could troll at 0.5 to 1.5, just depending on what the fish are wanting. But normally, I would start out at 0.5. 0.5 to 0.7 is usually a good trolling speed. And that trolling motor will be your current.
Yep. Absolutely.
It keeps you on track. And even if you don't have one that you can put the waypoints in and set and it track the waypoints, if you go through and put your waypoints in, then come back and start up that. If you have a remote to that controlling motor, you can watch your waymarks and watch your fish finder, and you can control and stay on them waypoints. Guys, that's the biggest deal. Maximize your time fishing where the fish are.
Yep.
You don't want to be in the bite window where the fish are for 10 minutes and an hour and 50 minutes. You're just floating in dead space. Stay where the fish are. You got to look for stuff like that. All that stuff is very important.
Yep.
And you need to pay attention to that.
Yeah, it goes back to what we were saying, you know. Keep an eye on what's going on around you. Your wind, your barometer, the birds, you know, the whole 9 yards. I used to noodle for turtles, for snapping turtles.
I noodled when I was younger. I've done it for years. I had the privilege of noodling with some of the best in the business, Scooter and Skipper Bivens and their family. And I don't do it anymore. I haven't done it in years. My lungs are not what they used to be. I know a lot of guys do it. The only problem with noodling that I have is if you go out there and you're catching all these big fish and you're taking them out of that body of water and you're killing them, you are decimating the future of that hatchery. whether it
Taking
be
the genetics out of the water.
whether it be a river, whether it be a creek, whether it be a lake. And if people keep taking advantage of the resource, it's not going to be there anymore. Uh, for instance, guys, back in the 40s and 50s, on the same body of waters that lots of us fish now, guys were catching fish in the 150 to 200-pound class range. Why are you not catching them fish here today? Because they were taken out of that water and they were killed off. Uh, Same thing, you'll go to a body of water, and every fish you catch in that body of the water is like a cookie cutter. They're all the same size. Now, some of that has to do with how much bait they have and how much food they have and stuff like that. But a lot of it is all the big fish genetics were taken out of that water.
Yep. That's like,
And
I got a rule in my boat. You can't keep nothing 20 pounds or above.
I
Somebody
don't
fish
keep
for me? I don't keep nothing unless, like I said, unless I got a fish order, and I usually run the trot line for that. But if somebody wants some eaters, you know, I've
Yeah.
got somebody fishing with me. 20 pound above is going back. Like I said, that buddy of mine caught a fish for the lifetime for him. 40 pound blue. And I said,
Hey,
going
Roger
back.
Brown, welcome.
It's going back.
Yep.
Oh,
I don't keep anything over 10 pounds, and I only keep fish when I'm ready to eat.
right.
You my house, you open my freezer, you will not find fish stacked in my freezer. I don't stock them. When I'm ready to eat fish, I go catch fish. Uh,
Right.
Guys, the big fish genes, we preach CPR. Talk to some of these bass lakes or these catfish lakes that are on the comeback now. If you do not believe in CPR and that it works, you go, there's a lake here, local lake. It was a champion bass lake. It had trophy bass. And when I say trophy bass, we're talking 10-pound plus. And they did not take care of that fishery and they let it go. And over the years, people kept taking them big fish out, big fish out. It killed that lake. You do not have that big fish gene in that lake. So this year they started restocking their lakes, and they spent $100,000 on these lakes trying to bring other fish in to get size back into these fish and breed genetics back into them. Guys, they're starting. It's not going to be an overnight deal. You not screw this up overnight, you're not going to fix it overnight. It's a long process, and lots of things are going to be considered into the variables. How many fish are in the water, the amount of bait they've got, the size of the body of water they're in, to control how big that fish is going to get.
Yep.
So
Size limits here. They actually started putting size limits down here. You're only allowed one, if people are catching fish, you're only allowed one fish over 36 inches long, because it's different than what it used to be. When I started coming down here in 1999 fishing, 20s, 30s on the regular. I mean,
yeah,
on regular, constant. I mean, one after another. That's dropped down. Now you're tens to mid-teens
yeah.
on the regular now, and they realized it and they started putting limits on it because people were just taking everything out. I'm like, God. We was
But
talking
that's
about
why
this before the show. I'm like, I see people take
that's why you're
a
a
50-pound
lot
fish
of
out.
these
I'm like,
fisheries
oh my God,
come
what are you
back.
doing? Leave that fish in the water. Take pictures, take measurements, girth, length. You know, take several pictures. You can have a freaking replica made if you want a trophy. Leave that fish in the water. If I hit a state record, I still.
Yep. I'm
Yep.
not going to take a big fish out of the water and kill it. Knowing what I know, I could not consciously do that.
Me neither.
That's like up there with Has and Fishing Magician and Chunky and all them up in the DMV area. They want to try and kill them. And other states too. If you catch a world record fish, they're going to kill that fish. Before that fish goes into the record books, they're going to end up killing that fish. Man, I would let that fish go because I'd rather have that fish out there swimming and breeding
Me
than I
too.
would in the record
So it
books.
preserves the
Because
fishery for generations to come. That's
yeah,
my
our children and our grandchildren are going to get to catch those fish. If we do not do something and take a stand now, they're not going to have that opportunity.
Yep.
Hey,
That's what I don't like about the catfish tournaments. People say, TJ, why don't you enter fish them catfish tournaments down there like Cabela's big king cat and all that and Carolina catfish and all that. I'm like, dude, that catching them fish and putting them in a freaking toolbox ain't good for that fish. It stresses that fish. And then you haul them around all day and then take them to the weigh in and put them in the thing and then take all your pictures and then put them back. I think that's hurting the fish. I think it's hurting them. I really do. And that's my opinion, you know, and other people might have different opinions, but I think that's a big stressor on the fish. Catching them, putting them in a daggone truck toolbox. That's what 90% of guys that fish the tournament trail have is big truck toolboxes in there for their live wells. You know, and they're square. You know, ideally for a fish to survive in a live well, it should be oval. And I just think that hurts the fish and that puts stressors on the fish that it shouldn't even have to go through. The kayak guys are doing it, you know, measuring them because they got that formula: length times girth divided by 5,000. That's how they figure the weight of the fish out. The kayak guys, and it's working for them. Why can't it work for the big tournament trails? And I know why, because it's a money grabber, so that people could see them great big fish being held up and all that. But I just don't think it's right or ethical, in my opinion. That's my opinion.
There's Brad Caudill. One fish could change a body of water forever of that size. That's exactly right, Brad. That's why you see people paying all these thousands of dollars for that trophy buck just to breed on their farms, because it's all about the genetics. It's the same with fish. People think that every blue cat born is going to get up to be an 80-pound fish, and that's not true. They are limited by their genetics the same way we are. That's why every one of us is not 6'6", 345 pounds. We've got different genetics. Fish are the same way.
Absolutely.
So,
all right, check out table.
Well, guys, we've been on here 2 hours. I'm going to go ahead and let TJ go and let y'all guys go and let y'all get back to your evening. But I appreciate each and every one of y'all for coming in. Be sure, if you have Hilljack Catfishing, subscribe to his channel. Give him a look. Check him out. See what everybody's about. And like I say, guys, if you ever have a question, email me. Look me up on Facebook. Find a way to get a hold of me. I will share information with you. I don't have any secrets. You watch my streams and stuff. I show you where I'm fishing, what body of water, exactly where I'm at, why I'm there. And I want that knowledge out there so you can be successful.
Yep, that's the way with me. I do my live streams, and I'm probably going to be 95% live stream fishing because I want people to see the real reality of fishing. There's some days.
Time out, guys. Epic just chimed in. I think we're fixing to pull Epic up in here.
All right.
TJ, if you need to go, you can
I'm
go.
good. I'm good.
I'm gonna
Bring Epic in here.
see.
Professor Catfish. Well, waiting on him. That's just like I said. I'm going to be 95% of my stuff is going to be live stream fishing because I'm going to show you reality. Reality. Good days, bad days. If I fall off the boat, if I break a rod, if I lose a rod, if my motor won't start, you know, I'm just going to let it hang out there so that people can see what it is. So that it ain't all catching like some people, like it, you know, people work 4 or 5 days on a video to get enough footage. Come on, Tim.
I'm trying to figure out how I can get him the link. I think I'm gonna go
Send it to him on Facebook Messenger.
on my phone.
Or you can drop the link in chat and he can grab it off there.
How do you do it in chat?
You just go to chat, hit more, and then paste it into the comments.
Let me see.
It'll go, you go hit more and then hit leave a comment and then just paste it in the.
There we
There
go.
you go. There you go. It's always a pleasure to be on the panel with him.
I was ready to go, but anytime Tim offers something like that,
Absolutely.
I can't.
Stop the presses.
Hey, Cody, welcome. Man, you got here just in time. Yeah, I can't. There he is. There he is.
Hey, Tim.
Fellas.
How we doing?
I get excited when guys like you guys are talking about genetics and what happens and populations of fish, and somebody else was talking about the Susquehanna River and all this stuff. I get excited because that's one of the biggest things that was kind of closest to my biggest study thing back in the day, and I just had a short amount of time that I wanted to talk about what I was involved with, 25 years ago. And I said in chat that a lot of the DNR guys were, they chose to not believe in genetics, because if you believe in genetics, that made their job harder. Okay. So the DNR is a political entity. And if you think about this, it comes from the top down. And so you've got a head guy, and the head guy says to himself, and I know this from the inner workings. And the head guy says, well, if we believe in genetics, then we have to, then all of a sudden the commercial fishing guys that supply most of our information about catfish, because if you think about it, the DNR is busy with bass first, walleye second, crappie, blah, blah, blah. And they could always just kind of rest on their laurels and their information about catfish because, of course, they're going to put regulations on ponds and lakes.
Yeah.
Because, it's a finite resource. Then they wanted to, kind of shut a blind eye back, 25, 30 years ago and say, well, catfish are indeterminate growth, which indeterminate growth means, just like all fish, a crappie will grow its entire life. They don't have a shut off. but that doesn't mean that every crappie is going to be 6 pounds like the world record. It's just
Right.
not going to happen, you know, and it really doesn't matter, you know, and catfish are different because they're geared differently. Catfish are geared differently. They are absolute top predator, more than muskie, more
Yep.
than bass, more than smallmouth, more than any of these fish. They were designed by God or nature, however you want to believe, to be the everlasting predator that eliminates other fish that aren't quite right. So if you have a population of crappie that are a little bit too slow or a little too dumb, if you have other channel cats or whatever, if those fish aren't quite very good genetically, catfish wipe them out. So it's a catfish actually cleanses the other fish of their poor genetics and supports bigger, faster growing fish of crappie, all the fish that they eat, crappie, bass, bluegill, shad, all that stuff. They're like they're freshwater sharks is what they are. You know, and so you guys knew that when the big push was happening, when the Chinese and the Japanese and everybody was doing the big shark fin soup thing, and the shark population started dropping. Well, so did all the other fish started being what I would say weedy genetically. So you know, if you have genetics that aren't policed, you know, that's what the job of wolves were. You know, really to actually propagate better deer herds. You know,
Right.
it's almost like we heard David just talk about a little bit earlier that, you know, in the 50s or and actually like the 20s and in the 1870s, people were catching ginormous catfish, like stuff we've never even been pleasure to. And as a matter of fact, their population as far as big fish dropped pretty hard about the 60s, 70s, and 80s. We did the Clean Water Act. We started doing a few things. You know, some of the dams got removed. We had fish ladders and blah blah blah. So the population actually increased, along with the initial the initial thing of catch, photo, and release, the CPR, and that has helped many rivers. I'm not saying it's really helped the Mississippi that much because there's still a lot of commercial fishing. So if you think about it, let's talk about that tournament thing because I could go off on a tangent forever. But you guys were talking about tournaments, and you especially, Hilljack, we're talking about, okay, it's probably not good for a 50, 60, 70 pound catfish to go into basically a truck box. I don't care if they put a bunch of air into it as much as they want. It's still not good. It does stress the fish out. It does, especially if they can't keep the. I mean, I was the official at the 2008, I think, Cabela's King Cat tournament. And I saw lots of fish that were not clinically dead, but they were going to be dead. And actually they picked me because I knew what the health of the fish looked like. And I disqualified a bunch of fish, made a bunch of guys mad. But you know, a lot of them, after they got over their angriness, they actually came back and thanked me. They said, you know what? I'm going to do this better. I'm going to work on this better. I'm going to put oxygen in it. I'm going to keep the water cool. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. The other thing, too, is I told them I was not going to be the official unless they had a transport boat and they could release every catfish, not in the bay where it was like 99 degrees and no oxygen. I said, if you have a transport boat that you'll put them in a big tank and you'll take them out to the main channel and let them go, I'll be your official. And no, it really did work because you can tell, because it's just like anything else. So the extremities on a person, if you run low on oxygen, the first thing you notice is your extremities, your fingers, your whatever. So it's because if you're under stress, most of your blood will rush to your inner cavity to support your life. And so when the pectoral fins become what I would say placid, they don't raise them. and it's very difficult to visualize or understand. But as soon as it starts losing color on its extremities and then starts losing color, it's pretty much done, especially big fish. And I know this because and one of the reasons why they picked me is in college I did studies on that. How low was the oxygen content and how long could you have large fish, say 20 to 40 pounds. We didn't put any giant fish in there, but how long is the period of time with lack of oxygen that they still appear healthy but still don't make it past 3 days. And believe it or not, the post mortality on bass tournaments is a lot worse than anybody reports, and so is catfish tournaments. Now the smaller fish, not so bad, but we all know, I mean, just keeping bluegills alive, we know that you stress them out a little bit too much, put their oxygen content a little too much, they might survive for a day or two. But you can put them in a perfect environment, and all of a sudden you have a major fish kill going on, and you have no idea why until you look back and go, yeah, I had him in the boat. It was a little too warm, or maybe there's a little bit too much protein in the water. Which everybody that's kept live baits knows that foam on top of the water. Everybody can learn from this one. If you have foam on top of your water, that means your bait fish are stressed to the point which they're excreting protein out of their cells. So when it's almost like being dehydrated as a human. If you're completely dehydrated, that means that you don't have enough water. Well, fish don't drink water. They actually get it by osmosis. But while stressed, they start excreting their slime coat. So that's the first amount of protein that goes out. The second, the protein starts coming out their gills, starts coming out their eyes, starts coming out all this stuff. And it's all an attempt to survive. And and because we're not fish, we don't realize that fish are way more fragile than humans. Humans are pretty tough. We really are. We can go through a lot of crap. We can get completely exhausted. We can get almost completely dehydrated, and we're not going to die. But when fish get which is the human example of dehydrated, that means protein's gone. That means slime coat starts sloughing off. That means ammonia starts building up and all this stuff. They may survive for a day or two, but as soon as a catfish starts turning sideways, he's done. I've had to literally hold catfish, big ones, upright until they get past that, and 3, 4, 5 hours at a time. I've had to put them in colder water. I've had to put them in oxygenated water with a little bit of salt and a little bit of chromium and a little bit of things like that, just to make sure that they survived. And that was back in the day when I was doing my own study through the University of Illinois. So we have some hard facts, but no one, I mean, only super fish nerds have had the opportunity to read it. Like I used to be on the DNR read list, and a lot of people have been on it, but they don't really want to read it because it's full of boring statistics and giant words and blah blah blah. You have to be a real psycho to actually read that stuff. And I used to read it, and and some of it could even bore me to death. Super statistics and blah blah blah, and everything's done in freaking centimeters and grams and everything like that. So you're constantly having to do that. But what I'm trying to tell all the audience is that catfish are not as tough as what everybody thinks they are. So I think it was Brad that said he's not going to kill a fish to get his name in the record books. And that is completely commendable. You're the same way. So's David. So am I. And there's a lot of guys you'll probably never hear about that say, you know what? I don't care if I catch a 150-pound blue. I'm not killing that. In the state of Illinois, actually, they stated on their thing. If you catch what you think is a record, they're not coming to you. You have to wrap it in newspaper and freeze the thing, and they'll come and do their test at their own leisure. And
Yeah.
so when I said I've had several state and world records, and I didn't say world records, but I've had at least 3 world records in my boat, and I've had at least 5 state records in 2 different states in my boat. I will not kill that fish for that. It's
Me neither.
It's the dumbest thing in the world. I mean, they want to promote a fishery. Get a biologist to the boat. Get him to the boat. And you know what else? I said I told the first one I called, because it was actually during the day. I said, I need a DNR officer down here. I need a scale. I need a whatever. It's such boat ramp. They said, what are you talking about? I said, I have a state record flathead in my boat right now. I said, before I even take him to the marina, I said, I need him there before I get him out of the nice fast water and put him in the slow warm water. I said, I'm not waiting a bunch of time. And the lady on the phone told me, we don't do that. I said, you don't do what? You don't like promote your fishery as
Nope.
as a trophy fish. I mean, this is like over 90 pounds when the state record was 78. And I said, what? I said, hold it here. I said, you don't really care. No. It states in our program that we will get to you after you freeze the fish. I said, I'm not killing the fish. Well, then you're not going to have a record. I said, okay, that's fine.
Right.
I'd let it go right there. You know,
Yep.
I mean, I may have a fish in my boat for a short amount of time, but if I'm going to take pictures, I'll hold the fish over the boat and let him breathe and recuperate, because I don't like out of the epic super monster video. What I cut out was Garrett and I actually held that thing overboard because there was too much time. It looked pretty slick, but there was a little bit too much time during the video, and we held it overboard for more time than we actually had it in the boat before we let it go. And that's ultra important. And some people might think, you know, if they're watching this, they might think, well, it's a little bit, you know, because people can think, okay, yeah, I love catfish, love them, have always been my thing, and maybe I'm too overprotective, but I'm not, because when I was doing the thing for the U of I, there would be fish that you would swear would make it in the well oxygenated, well cooled tanks that didn't, just because they were not handled well between catching them and taking them to that. And I've seen a lot of fish that were held in horse tanks and this and that and the other. You know, they're 100-pound fish, 120-pound fish, 130-pound fish. You know, like a lot of the Bass Pro fish actually made it through the whole ordeal and died a week later.
Right.
So why is that? I mean, all the other fish are alive.
And then with the tournament stuff too, if you've ever been to a tournament weigh-in, there's a lot of fish dropped.
There is.
That, you know, and I just think CPR would be so much better. It's working for the kayak guys. Why can't it work for all the tournament trails, you know?
Well, if a person has held a lot of catfish, you know when it's going to freak on you. You notice, did you watch my live the other night when I was holding that 40? So I got my knees kicked up. I got my whole chest back because I knew it was going to freak because I horsed the thing in. And so I'm like, am I going to stand with it like this or like this? No, I got to cradle that fish because, I mean, shoot, it almost slapped me in the face and all that. And I already knew. Flatheads are actually pretty placid when you get them in the boat, unless you do like a 3-minute fight on a 40-pound fish. You basically get them in the boat, and then all of a sudden they're going to freak. So if you're holding them like this, of course they're going to hit the floor, and you don't want them to hit the floor. I mean, hit the floor of the boat. I mean, those fish can't take that. Some probably can if they land just right. And I'm not saying that they're all, a bunch of sissies, but if you think about it, they live in water, which is a dense atmosphere, and they don't swim, they fly. If you think about it. If our atmosphere was dense, even though it's not water, we could actually fly. So they don't hit objects just falling. They don't fall. They actually increase their swim bladder. Their swim bladders goes like that, and they actually float up. A flathead and a blue and a channel cat, they don't have to do much in current. Let's get this here. But go like this. The current drives them up. They take their pectoral fins down.
Yeah.
And, David was saying this not too long ago to me on the phone. He's like, flatheads are amazing because they're so built to be held to the bottom that they actually have to use effort to get up because of their style. And blues are shaped like, do you remember if you watched the, I don't know, in the 1965s or 70s, which I was a young kid, but the shape of the early missiles from Russia and the United States was basically the ellipse. Like they were conical, but they were round and then they were tailed off. It's exactly like a blue. And think about it. They have thrust. Blues have thrust in fast water, doing almost nothing. That's why
torpedo.
Yes, a torpedo. That's why their tails only do this, because they're the ones that live in the fastest water. Of course, they live in lakes and stuff like that because we put them there. But in the Mississippi, they just paddle tail. And so a channel cat, since it is the most well-rounded, it goes from almost no current to the fastest current. Their tails whip all the way like this, and then flatheads do the super whale shark thing like this.
Right.
And so, that'll tell you right there. I mean, just swimming style will tell you where they're at, what the nature of them has equipped them to do. But, sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent, but let's just say you guys are absolutely spot on. I love hearing you guys talk and theorize and talk about your experiences because, dude, you guys are right on. I haven't winced one time. Love it.
Good. Guys,
Love it.
I hate to end this, but
yep,
I got a couple of phone calls from my wife. She's on her way. She needs me. She's picking me up. So
okay.
I got to get off of here before I get in big trouble.
All right,
Tim, it was a pleasure, brother.
And
pleasure, Hill Jack.
Tim, thanks for coming in.
Yep.
TJ,
Yep.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to my catfish nerdness.
Man, anytime you want to come on, Tim, you just let me know and we will figure it out some way. And I love listening to you. I know anglers in the audience and stuff.
You guys.
I see Lynn Leeper just made it in.
Hey, what's up, Lynn?
Fisher Crappie made it back in. But you see me next time when I got black eyes. That's because I was on more than I was supposed to be.
All right. Yeah. Epic Catfish out.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate y'all. All right, guys. I appreciate everybody. I love each and every one of y'all. Thank y'all for showing your support. Like I say, if you have any questions, go ahead and email me.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Country boy, I appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate
thank you.
It was great. And I appreciate all of y'all guys. We'll see y'all next week.